Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. And today I wanted to introduce you to the Aries point. And this horoscope here, that I have here, very much illustrates the Aries point. This is the horoscope of Fred Rodgers, Mr. Rodgers, who invented the neighborhood, that kind neighborhood that taught children tolerance, love, caring, hope. So this is Mr. Rodgers, his information. He was born on the 20th of March in 1928. Today, the first day of spring, is his birthday. And he was born at 6:26 p.m. and he was born in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Latrobe, the home of, I've forgotten the name of the beer, but old Latrobe. Anyway, this is Mr. Rodgers, and the Aries point is illustrated in this chart. Notice that this is an incredibly balanced human being. And that sun, his sun, is also in the Aries point. So the thing about the Aries point now, if you want to know what's going to happen for the next 3-4 months, you do a chart for every time the sun crosses an Aries point. That's 0 degrees, or the first degree of Aries, the first degree of Cancer, the first degree of Libra, and the first degree of Capricorn. And that chart for whatever territory you're interested in, your own territory or the government's territory. I set it at Washington, D.C., and that would talk about the forces in action for the next 3 months. So the Aries point is beginnings. Things begin at the Aries point. It was interesting to me that the chart for the new epoch, the one that began on December 31st in 2012, at the end of the Mayan long count, that chart also had the Aries point at all the angles. And remember, it's the angles are where things happen. So that when something aspects or crosses an angle, that's when the action occurs. So this chart started something. This person started something. This is Fred Rodgers, who was born in 1928, and back in the day when children were not. They were not coddled like they are now. I mean, I think that the overprotection and coddling of children that goes on now is the pendulum has swung the other way, because when Fred Rodgers and I were growing up, children were not particularly coddled. As a matter of fact, we were overworked, underappreciated. So, and you can see that Fred Rodgers is one of these people that was overworked and underappreciated. His Chiron is up there in the 8th house in Taurus. And that is a wound in the 8th house. It's a wound to intimacy. And that meant that he was the feminine nature, which I have because I'm a woman. I also have a male nature. And men have a feminine nature. We all got a Venus. We all got a Mars. And that is a wound to the feminine nature, to his sensitivity. And notice that that the moon is square Saturn. And this is kind of a hard upbringing. My moon also is square Saturn, and it's a lot because of the times we were raised in which people did not understand what childhood was all about, evidently. So that moon, square Saturn, shows us that Fred Rodgers had a personal interest in how children were raised, because he was quite aware of the trauma and the long-term consequences of the way he was raised. Okay, let's look at Fred Rodgers. He recently died. He was at moon phase 28. So let's look at the cycle here. 28. It's the end of the cycle. It is, you have created the Philosopher's Stone, the great gift that you've been building this whole cycle, the great gift to human consciousness. And the thing about these last phases, they're really special, those last 3 phases. That's where the decision is made to what the next cycle is going to be about. That's when the analysis happens that, okay, we are here, now where are we going next? What's the next logical step? So these 3 phases are necessary to live, but you don't have to live them in the physical body if you've done your work. In phase 26, Yeats says that you will still be embedded in Earth, but you will not be embodied. It's the physical body that hurts, you know. But you will still learn whatever, and the message is that the physical is sacred. People who come back as a moon phase 28 usually come back because they have neglected to internalize that information, that the physical is also sacred. It's all sacred. There ain't nothing here that ain't holy. And so 28 will incarnate in order to experience virtually the joy of the body. Or these 3, if they have the option to not incarnate, but to understand they're still paying attention in some way to what's going on here. It's just that not having to do it in the physical body is such a boon. So if these people do incarnate, it isn't always because they haven't realized that the physical is holy. It's because they have their soul wants to do a particular job, and I think that is the case for moon phase, or for Fred Rodgers. So the rectangle moon phase 28, it's 28, 16, 14, and 2. And this is the rectangle of self-actualization. And that means that we're working on ourselves. And we use the technique is obsession. And that obsession focuses our energies. The 28 does not supposed to have obsessions. I think that Fred Rodgers did have an obsession. But it was an obsession, it was a job to be done. And I think what he wanted to do was, virtually what he did, was start a new understanding. There was a new understanding going on. You know, we had a Dr. Spock who wrote a book that was virtually a revelation to mothers. So what Fred Rodgers' obsession is, of course, look up here, it's in his obsession. Pluto tends to speak to your obsession. It's in Cancer, and it has to do with how you're raised. And that Pluto is to square in Fred Rodgers' chart, is in square to Jupiter, which just shows it was a power trip that wounds children, the power trip of adults that wounds children, and their lack of understanding of children. We've got here a Neptune and a Mercury and a Venus that don't have any real Ptolemaic aspects to them. This is a wide opposition, but I think that it is so wide that it gives these planets Neptune, Mercury, and Venus, a hell of a lot of latitude. And it's the joy of the unaspected planet is you got latitude. You're not tied to some other thing going on. And so that unaspected Neptune, for instance, is just a powerful, all-encompassing empathy. It's a sensitivity to justice, to the human condition in the world, to life. Notice that Neptune is ruled by his exalted sun in Aries. He's got some good planets. The sun in Aries. What else? And the Venus is exalted and conjunct Mercury. And that makes a very loving person. In Pisces, it's a very loving, giving person. And I think that Fred Rodgers incarnated simply because he wanted to do this job. As he wanted to change the trajectory of child raising in this country, world. And I think he did a really good job. He developed Mr. Rodgers' neighborhood. Here in the third house is your neighborhood. And so he created a neighborhood that's ruled by this Jupiter. And Jupiter in Aries is just benevolent and open to everything or anything. And that Jupiter is widely conjunct the Uranus. It's up there, definitely affected by the Uranus-Sun conjunction there, and that means that it's humane, it's forward thinking, it's definitely higher order of understanding. And so that's what he was wanting to inject into the neighborhood. All this Neptune, Pisces, Neptune ruled stuff talks about the inventiveness of him. And he's got an awful lot of creativity in this chart. This is in his fifth house of creativity. It's the Leo house. And it wanted to bring in new ideas, humane ideas, the Mars there in Aquarius. And it wanted a compassionate understanding, that Venus, loving understanding. He wanted a safe place for kids. His constituency, over here in the seventh house and the sixth house, is kids. It's in Aries. And it's in accepting them the way they are. You got Uranus over there in the seventh house. And you remember the United States has Uranus on the cusp of the seventh house. And that means you have to accept people the way they are. And that's one of the real lessons that Fred Rodgers taught, was to accept other people the way they are. Notice where the nodes are. He was a teacher. And acceptance of who the child is, and acceptance that child can develop for other people. That was a real important message that Fred Rodgers wanted to get across. And I think he did it beautifully. We've got a lot. Notice the nodes, and notice we've got the Jupiter in the degree of the nodes, and we've got Fortuna in the degree of the nodes. And that makes that Jupiter, which rules his south node and his Saturn, karmically important. And that's why I think that's why he incarnated, is to do this work. Moon, Saturn, has to do with doing a work an emotional work, a spiritual work, and he did. He did. What else did I want to say? You know, okay, here we've got, okay, the Sun Uranus conjunction is just originality, creativity. So, what else did I want to have? Oh, yeah, the rectangle of self-actualization, back to that. Use obsession, I am one of that rectangle, I am a 14. We use that obsession to focus our energies, otherwise it tends to just scatter. Whereas a moon phase 28 is to release those obsessions and to simply wander. And I don't know how much Fred Rodgers wandered, because this obsession up here looks so very, very important. That obsession to make children feel more secure, to make children happier, healthier, to teach them. And to teach the adults, too. I used to watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And a thing about a 28 that I want you to understand is that those last three phases are if you don't have to be in body, it's much happier. You know, like Yeats said that 27, for instance, could be the spirit of a spring or something. You know, the guardian of a spring. But and the reason that well, you know, you're in Earth, I'm in Earth, and it hurts. But for this last three phases in the cycle, it's even more dangerous, because they're called sin eaters, and that means that they are permeable to other people's woes. What they have the ability to do is, because they are spiritually so powerful, is they can take virtual illness into themselves, burn it away in their heart, in their solar fire, and release the energy and eliminate the negative, accentuate the positive. But this is very hard. So what happens with 26, 27, and 28, if they're not aware of the fact that they are sin eaters and deliberately do this thing, is that they go out in the world and it makes them sick. But I think that Fred Rodgers knew what he was doing. He's got the South Node in Sagittarius. Saturn's there. He knew what he was doing. And so I think that Fred Rodgers was a successful sin eater, and I'm hoping that he was healthy. He certainly made a lot of people happy. He was a good Merlin. He was a good Merlin. Well, I think that's all I have to say. I'm wishing Fred Rodgers well, wherever he and whatever he is doing now. And I wish you all well. Wear your mask, and don't forget to tell people that you love them, especially if you do love them. Goodbye.